Each of us is carrying two versions of ourselves. One is strong, determined, and ready to rise. The other is weak, lazy, and filled with excuses. Every single day, both versions wake up with us. The question is, which one will you feed and which one will you starve? If you don't kill the weak version of yourself, that version will eventually kill your dreams. My dear friends, life does not destroy us. Our weaknesses do. We are not defeated by the world outside, we are defeated by the world inside. The weak version of ourselves tells us, sleep a little more, work a little less, settle for average. But deep within, God has given us the strength to rise, to fight, and to conquer, to step into the best version of ourselves. We must let go of the weaker self that chains us down. Today, I want to share how you can identify, fight, and finally kill that weak version of yourself, so that the strong, unstoppable version of you can shine. My dear friends, before we talk about killing the weak version of yourself, we must first learn to recognize that it even exists. Most people are walking through life not even aware that there are two forces pulling them in completely opposite directions. One version of you is strong, fearless, filled with determination, ready to fight for your dreams, ready to take responsibility for your life. But the other version of you is weak, lazy, constantly making excuses, constantly whispering in your ear that you are not capable, that you should just give up, that comfort is better than growth. These two versions live within all of us, and whether we accept it or not, they are battling every single day inside our minds. Let me give you an example. Imagine your alarm clock rings at 5:30 in the morning. You have two voices speaking to you at the same time. The weak version says, just sleep a little more. It won't matter. You deserve rest. 5 more minutes won't hurt. And the strong version says, wake up. This is your chance to discipline your body, to build strength, to take control of your day before the day controls you. The weak version tells you to stay under the blanket of comfort. The strong version reminds you that every great achievement comes from discomfort. Both voices are equally loud, but only one will decide your destiny, the one you choose to obey. Recognizing these two versions is like recognizing two different people living inside you. One is a coach, one is a thief. The coach pushes you to rise higher, the thief steals your potential. The weak version is not bad because it exists. It is bad because it convinces you to leave small, to settle for less than what God has placed inside you. The weak self wants to keep you safe, but in reality, it keeps you stuck. The strong self, on the other hand, pushes you to break barriers, to expand your limits, to touch greatness, even if it means walking through discomfort. Think about your daily life. When you're at work and you know you can do more, but you choose to just do the minimum, that is the weak version winning. When you're studying and you decide to scroll endlessly on your phone instead of focusing, that is the weak version winning. When you know you should exercise, but you say, not today, tomorrow, that is the weak version winning. But the opposite is also true. When you push yourself to give your best at work, even when no one is watching, that is the strong version winning. When you choose to put the phone down and stay focused on your goals, that is the strong version winning. When you move your body even when you don't feel like it, that is the strong version rising above. So the first and most important step, my friends, is awareness. Most people lose this battle not because they are weak, but because they don't even realize the fight is happening. They think, this is just who I am. I'm lazy, I procrastinate, I don't have energy. No, that is not who you are. That is just one side of you speaking louder because you have been listening to it more often. The truth is, God has planted both strength and weakness within you, and He has given you the choice of which one to nourish. Here's the reality: whichever version you listen to, that version grows stronger. If you constantly obey the weak self, you make it more powerful, and over time, it will dominate your life. But if you start listening to the strong self, even in the smallest decisions, even in the tiniest steps, you give it strength, you give it life, you give it power to guide your future. Recognizing these two selves is like standing at a crossroad every single day. One path is easy, smooth, filled with comfort, but it leads to regret. The other path is steep, difficult, filled with challenges, but it leads to pride, confidence, and growth. Every choice you make, what you eat, how you spend your time, who you surround yourself with, how you treat your body, how you control your thoughts, every choice is a vote for either the weak version or the strong version. So I ask you today, which version are you listening to more? Are you letting the weak self decide your life? Or are you giving the strong self a chance to lead you to greatness? Recognition is power. The moment you realize there are two versions, you begin to take back control. You begin to understand that when excuses come, it's not really you, it's the weak self speaking. And when courage rises, it's not just motivation, it's the strong self trying to take charge. Life will not wait for you to decide. Days will pass, months will pass, years will pass, and one day you will look back and realize which version of yourself you lived with most. Don't let that realization come when it's too late. Start today. Start by paying attention to the voices inside. Start by catching yourself when the weak version tries to dominate. And every time you choose the strong self, even in something as small as waking up on time, you are training yourself to become the person you were meant to be. So, my friends, remember these two versions of you wake up every morning. The weak self wants to chain you to mediocrity. The strong self wants to free you into greatness. Recognize them, see them clearly, and then with awareness, choose wisely. Because the version you choose today will decide the life you live tomorrow. My dear friends, once you recognize that there are two versions of yourself, the strong and the weak, the next step is to stop feeding the weaker version. Because what you feed grows and what you starve dies. The weak version of you survives only because you give it energy, you give it attention, you give it space to exist. If you truly want to kill that weak self, you must stop giving it your time, your excuses, and your energy. Think of it this way. Imagine there are two animals inside you. One is strong, disciplined, and powerful. The other is lazy, fearful, and fragile. Every day, you decide which one to feed. If you feed the strong animal with good thoughts, good habits, and strong actions, it grows mighty and takes control of your life. But if you keep feeding the weak animal with laziness, fear, and endless excuses, it becomes fat, heavy, and soon it will sit on your chest, not letting you breathe, not letting you move forward in life. Let me give you a simple example. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to say, "I'll do it tomorrow"? That is one of the favorite meals of your weak version. Procrastination. Every time you say, "tomorrow," you feed it. It becomes stronger, it becomes hungrier, and before you know it, it has eaten years of your life. Now imagine instead of feeding it tomorrow, you give it today. You say, "No, I will do it now." That one act of starving the weak version gives power to the strong self inside you. Another favorite meal of the weak version is comfort. The weak self loves comfort food, comfort zones, comfort habits. It says, don't exercise, just lie down. Don't read, just scroll. Don't challenge yourself, stay safe. And when you keep giving it this diet of comfort, it grows until it completely dominates your lifestyle. Look around. Most people today are prisoners of their comfort zones, not because they are incapable, but because they have been feeding the weak self with comfort for too long. So, how do you stop feeding your weakness? By changing what you give your attention to. Attention is food. Energy is food. Habits are food. Let's take a real life scenario. Suppose you come home after work and you have two choices: to spend an hour watching meaningless shows or to spend an hour learning a new skill. The weak version is begging for entertainment. The strong version is hungry for growth. If you give your time to entertainment, you have fed the weak self. If you give it to learning, you have fed the strong self. Small decisions like these shape the strength of the two versions inside you. Let me tell you something important. The weak version of yourself will never die by accident. You cannot hope that one day it will simply disappear. No, it has to be starved deliberately, intentionally. Just as a plant dies when you stop watering it, your weak self dies when you stop feeding it excuses. When you say, no more laziness, no more procrastination, no more comfort zones controlling my destiny, you cut off its supply. And in that very moment, your strong self begins to rise. But understand this, starving your weakness is not always comfortable. In fact, it will feel painful at times. When you wake up early instead of sleeping in, your weak self screams for more rest. When you push your body to exercise, your weak self cries for comfort. When you choose to study instead of wasting time, your weak self whispers, relax, you deserve a break. In those moments, you must remember that these cries are just hunger pangs of your weak version. Don't feed them. Let them pass. And as they pass, the weak version gets weaker, and the strong version gets stronger. Think about a person who quits a bad habit, let's say smoking. The first few days, the body cries out for the old comfort, the old habit. That's the weak version screaming, feed me, feed me. But the person resists, starves the weakness, and after some time, the habit loses its power. This is true for every weakness in your life, whether it is laziness, procrastination, fear, or overthinking. The more you resist feeding it, the more powerless it becomes. Let me remind you, greatness is not built on feeding comfort, it is built on feeding discipline. Champions are not made by feeding excuses, they are made by starving excuses. Leaders are not created by feeding fear, they are created by feeding courage. The strong version inside you is hungry for discipline, hungry for growth, hungry for challenges. Feed it daily. Give it the nutrition of consistency, the fuel of determination, the water of hard work, and watch it grow into a giant that takes you where you never imagined. So, my dear friends, today I challenge you, stop feeding your weakness. The next time laziness comes knocking, don't give it your energy. The next time procrastination tempts you, don't give it your time. The next time excuses rise, don't give them your belief. Starve them. Let them die. Because the moment you stop feeding weakness, strength becomes the only version of you that can survive. Remember this, your life tomorrow depends on the choices you make today. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you feed the strong version. Every time you choose growth over excuses, you feed the strong version. Every time you choose courage over fear, you feed the strong version. Stop feeding your weakness, and soon you will realize it no longer has power over you. Instead, the strong, unstoppable version of you will take control, and that, my friends, is when life begins to transform. My dear friends, if you truly want to kill the weak version of yourself, you must understand this: your mind is the battlefield. And unless you strengthen it daily, the weak self will always have the upper hand. The body follows the mind, not the other way around. If your mind is fragile, if your thoughts are weak, then your actions will also be weak. But if your mind is strong, your life will be strong. Every victory, every success, every breakthrough in life begins in the mind. Think about it. What stops most people from achieving their goals? It's not always a lack of talent or opportunity. It is usually their own thinking. I can't do this. I don't have enough time. What if I fail? What will people say? These thoughts are like chains. And who creates these chains? The weak version of yourself. But here is the good news: chains can be broken. And the tool to break them is a strong mind. Strengthening the mind is not something you do once in a while. It's not something you do only when you feel motivated. It's something you must do every single day, like training a muscle. Just as a bodybuilder lifts weights daily to grow strong, you must lift the weights of discipline, focus, and positive thinking every day to make your mind unshakable. Let me give you an example from daily life. Imagine you are at work and a problem arises. Your weak version will immediately panic. It will say, "This is too hard. I can't handle this. Why me?" But if your mind is strong, it responds differently. It says, "This is a challenge, not a defeat. I will find a solution. I will grow through this." Notice how the same problem can look like a burden to a weak mind, but like an opportunity to a strong mind. That difference, my friends, decides your entire life. So, how do we strengthen the mind? First, by controlling what we feed it. Just like your body cannot grow strong if you keep feeding it junk, your mind cannot grow strong if you keep feeding it negativity. Many of us spend hours consuming gossip, meaningless news, endless scrolling on social media. All of that is food for the weak self. It makes the mind restless, insecure, and distracted. But if you feed your mind uplifting knowledge, positive thoughts, and wisdom, you are strengthening it every single day. Second, we must practice focus. A weak mind is scattered. It wants to do everything but ends up doing nothing. A strong mind is sharp. It knows what it wants and locks in. Think of sunlight. When sunlight is spread out, it warms the skin. But when you focus it through a magnifying glass, it can set fire. That is the power of focus. The weak mind is scattered sunlight. The strong mind is laser fire. Every day you train your focus, you sharpen the mind, and the weak version of yourself loses its grip. Third, we must build resilience through daily practice. The weak self collapses the moment life becomes difficult, but the strong mind endures, adapts, and keeps moving. Life will not always go as planned. You will face setbacks, rejection, loss. The weak version will say, "Give up, it's too hard." The strong mind says, "This is temporary. I will rise again." That resilience does not come by chance. It comes by training the mind to stand tall no matter what storm comes. Let's look at an everyday example. Imagine you are trying to develop a habit, waking up early, for instance. The weak mind says, "I'm too tired, just 5 more minutes." But if you train your mind daily with discipline, you start to command it instead of being commanded by it. You say, "No, I choose to rise." The more you practice, the more your mind learns who is in charge. And one day, instead of the alarm waking you up, your mind wakes you up. That is the power of daily strengthening. Remember this truth: your outer life is just a reflection of your inner mind. If your mind is filled with doubt, your life will be filled with hesitation. If your mind is filled with excuses, your life will be filled with delays. But if your mind is filled with clarity, confidence, and courage, your life will mirror that strength. That's why people who achieve greatness are not always the most talented or the most gifted. They are the ones who have disciplined their minds. They have trained themselves to stay strong when others break. They have fed their thoughts with faith instead of fear, with determination instead of doubt, and that mental strength is what allowed them to rise above the rest. My friends, you must strengthen your mind daily because weakness never takes a day off. The weak version of yourself is always waiting for a moment of tiredness, waiting for a moment of doubt, waiting for you to drop your guard. That's why your training must be consistent. Read something powerful every day. Meditate, reflect, or pray daily. Speak words of strength to yourself, not words of weakness. Challenge your thoughts. When your mind says, "I can't," you reply, "I can and I will." This is how you slowly but surely kill the weak self and let the strong self lead. So, my dear friends, remember this: your mind is your greatest weapon, but only if you sharpen it daily. If you leave it dull, the weak version of yourself will use it against you. But if you train it, discipline it, and feed it strength, then your mind will become your greatest ally. Every day, invest in your mind. Every day, strengthen it. Because the stronger your mind becomes, the weaker your excuses grow, and the brighter your life shines. My dear friends, if you want to rise above the weak version of yourself, there is one truth you must accept. Discipline will take you where comfort never can. Comfort is tempting, sweet, and easy, but it is the favorite home of the weak version of you. Discipline, on the other hand, is not easy. It demands effort, sacrifice, and consistency. But while comfort keeps you stuck, discipline sets you free. Think about it. The weak version of yourself is always whispering, "Stay in bed a little longer. Skip the workout. Delay the task. Take it easy." It promises you relaxation, but in the end, it delivers regret. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it steals from your future. Discipline feels hard in the moment, but it builds your future. That is the difference between the two. Let's take an example from daily life. Imagine a student preparing for an important exam. The weak version says, "Relax, watch a show, you can study later." Comfort looks attractive, and giving in feels easy. But the day of the exam arrives, and the regret is heavy because the preparation was weak. Now imagine the same student choosing discipline instead. They turn off distractions, sit down, and study daily. It feels hard in the moment, but on the exam day, confidence replaces regret. That's the gift of discipline. Comfort is temporary pleasure. Discipline is long-term pride. Comfort asks, "What feels good now?" Discipline asks, "What will feel good later?" The weak version always chooses comfort, but the strong version is built on discipline. Let's be honest, discipline is not enjoyable in the beginning. Waking up early, exercising, focusing on work, saving money instead of spending it recklessly. None of these things feel pleasant at first. But every act of discipline is like planting a seed. You don't see the tree immediately, but over time, those seeds grow into forests of strength, confidence, and success. On the other hand, every time you choose comfort over discipline, you are planting weeds. At first, they look harmless, but eventually they choke your entire garden. Look at athletes, leaders, or successful individuals in any field. What separates them is not just talent. Talent without discipline is wasted. What sets them apart is their willingness to choose discipline over comfort again and again. While others sleep, they train. While others complain, they practice. While others settle, they push. Their greatness is not an accident. It is the result of countless disciplined choices stacked together. Let me give you another simple but powerful example: health. The weak self says, eat whatever you like, skip exercise, enjoy comfort. It feels good in the moment, but over time the body weakens, energy drops, and even simple tasks feel heavy. The strong self chooses discipline, exercising regularly, eating consciously, taking care of the body. It feels difficult at first, but over time energy grows, confidence shines, and life becomes lighter. Comfort steals health, discipline builds it. Discipline is also about consistency. Anyone can be disciplined for a day or two. But the weak version loves inconsistency. It says, you worked hard yesterday, relax today. True discipline is about showing up daily, whether you feel like it or not. That is where strength is built, when you act not because you are motivated, but because you are committed. And here is the irony: discipline, which at first feels like restriction, eventually creates freedom. A disciplined person has more control over their life, their time, and their future. A person who always chooses comfort becomes a slave to laziness, to bad habits, to regrets. Freedom does not come from comfort. Freedom comes from discipline. Take finances as an example. The weak self says, spend money now, enjoy today, don't think of tomorrow. That comfort leads to stress, debt, and worry. The disciplined self says, save, invest, plan. That feels hard at first, but it leads to security, peace, and freedom. Do you see the difference? Comfort keeps you trapped, discipline sets you free. The weak version of yourself will always fight against discipline. It will always try to convince you that comfort is better. It will say, you've done enough, relax. But every time you surrender to comfort, you strengthen the weak version. And every time you choose discipline, even in small things, you strengthen the strong version. Remember, my friends, discipline is not about punishing yourself. It is about training yourself. Just as an athlete trains the body to become stronger, you train your mind and habits through discipline.